lately, when I talk with people, and you say, well, how are you? They think I'm talking about the health. I'm not. I'm talking about their credit. First thing I want to know about is their credit, their personal credit, because that impacts where I go, who they can talk to. Now, I'm certain, Solomon, you have some restrictions in terms of dealing with people because of credit issues. But I want to ask you, first I'm going to ask you, Max and Billy, do you ever look at your personal credit?
Yes, of
Sure.
course.
You make certain that it's in shape.
Yeah, there's so many tools right now in the market that you're able to access it online or this type of, obviously it's not like a final credit, but it's an estimate, I guess. I'm not sure much, but that's the way I try to track my credit.
Well,
And especially, especially us, like as immigrants, that we came to this country, like in a part, like we're a bit obsessed on building our credit because
Sure.
we don't have like the 10-year or the 20-year that if you were born here, like you get your social and you're 17, 18 years old, you get your credit card. We got our credit way past that time. So we are like always trying to keep that in good shape.
Yeah.
Well, that's good that you haven't abused your personal credit. I want to ask you, Solomon, what do you consider business credit? Because I hear so many people talk about your business credit. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, the major part on a business credit is the financials, right? You do have this DNB where they will give you some sort of a credit rating. Obviously, you don't want to be having too many liens and too many delinquencies on your business credit report. But business credit report is not the primary thing that we look at. We look at obviously the financials, the personal credit, obviously the liabilities that you have, right? Are you a person who's continuing to not pay anything on time, or do you have like a tax lien? Do you have some sort of a delinquencies? Those are the things that we look at. But the major part would be the financials, the credit request itself, right? Don't try to be too greedy, right? Some people will say, hey, I need $1 million, but when they ask for the purpose, you don't know what the purpose is, right? So you always want to kind of know, if I'm asking for some money, I need to know what I'm going to be using the money for, right? Don't go to the bank and say, hey, I need the money, but I have no clue what I'm going to do with the money. Most likely the banks are going to back up, right? As far as you have a purpose to it, it always makes sense with the numbers. And keep in mind, when you're working with a relationship manager, most likely they'll be asking these questions for you, so you will kind of get used to it, right? Another quick point, March, that I want to mention about credit score, right? Listen, sometimes we all go through hardship, right? We are all humans. We make mistakes sometimes, and sometimes there are certain conditions that it's beyond us, right? Just like the pandemic, right? Nobody was expecting the pandemic. Everybody went through some sort of a turbulence, right, in 2020 time. So it's kind of understandable. But the important thing is that, do you have a story behind it, right? If you can explain that story behind it, you will be able to get that hurdle away. So let's say, for an example, if your credit score is 650 and we are saying, hey, it's a low score, right? But if you can tell that, hey, listen, I was 650 because I had this issue and this is why my credit score is bad, it's okay. What really goes wrong is that when you purposely just take out credit card debts, don't pay it because you felt like you didn't want to pay it, or you have a student debt that you didn't want to pay. Like, when you don't have a story to tell, that's where it becomes very ugly, right? As far as when you have a story to tell, and it's a good story, end of the day, there are certain banks who can make exceptions and adjustments based on that. So don't ever feel like just because one thing went wrong, that's the end of the day, right? That's not the way to look at things. It's all about having that open dialogue, open conversation, so that we could kind of process it, tell the story about it, and then we could take it to underwriting to kind of explain that process.
Your words sound like my words, because in the past year, there are people that have had enormous medical expenses because of illness, and it's not fair to penalize them for this one time. And medical expenses are extraordinarily high. And so sometimes if they can give you that story, you can understand it. And I think a banker gets over it, right?
Yep.
If that's the reason that brought them down. So I think that people have to understand that one-time story, but the misuse of credit cards can kill them.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the things that I like to do is to teach financial literacy to high school students.
Nice.
Because I want them to realize the problems when they misuse a credit card. Just because they have it doesn't mean it's good. It can be
Yep.
bad. Do you ever check your business credit, guys?
That's a good question, and I wanted to ask Solomon in that regard. I mean, which credit bureau, or I mean, how does that get? I actually have little knowledge about where can I have access to that actual business credit,
Correct.
other than when you apply to a business credit or something like that. They more or less guide you on where you at, but it's not as easy as the personal one, you know.
Yeah, so I would suggest is that don't spend too much time on that, right?
Okay.
The idea is that, do you have debts and are you paying the debt on time,
Sure.
right? It is not something similar to the personal credit where everything gets reported and then it's almost about a history. In business banking, the banks are looking at saying, hey, do you have existing debt? So typically your balance sheet will show all the debt that you have, right?
Sure.
And the question is that, are you paying that on time? Right? As far as your theory is paying it on time, I have debt, you will be in good shape, right? Now, there's something called DNB where you will get a DNB number where you will be able to report all your trades in the DNB portal. And some banks look at the DNB portal to see what are the trades that you have. Again, trades means liabilities or any type of loans that you have other banks that gets reported. Some banks might kind of take a look at that as well. But again, it is not the major defining credit for us to decline a loan, right? This is because remember, business banking is all about, small business is all about how much money you made, how much income do you have, right? And then can you afford to pay this one? And if you have a good business for more than 2 years and you have the income and you have the purpose and the need for this loan, more than likely you are getting it done, right? That's how I would kind of look at it, right? And obviously your credit is good as well. I guess one thing that I have seen a lot of small business owners do, and I think I kind of made this point in the beginning as well, is misusing the funds, right? You know, it's always keep in mind that it's two separate entities, right? You're an individual and your entity is another individual, right? Always keep it separate, don't commingle, because sometimes what I have seen with customers is that they make money, right? And then they think it's their money, so they take it out on their personal side, and then they go spend it or do something else, which is, it's okay, right? Because you're a business owner, it's your money and you can do whatever you want to do with it, right? There's no one going to control it. But when you now come to the bank to finance it, keep in mind now you are asking someone else to help you. So when you start asking for someone else to help you, you can't just run the show just like the way how you ran as it goes. So you need to have covenants in place, right? The bank is going to be looking at all those things. So always keep in mind that having a separate books for both the personal and the business is very critical, and don't misuse your business funds for your personal gains, right? You could have some of it, but not all of it, because what will happen is that it will deplete your net worth of your business.
Sure.
Keep in mind, just like your personal, your business is its own individual. It has its own net worth, it has its own liabilities, it has its own income. So the more you deplete that income, it becomes weaker and weaker and weaker, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you have to be a little bit careful. Right?
Sometimes accountants don't give that kind of advice because they always worry about taxes, paying taxes.
Yeah.
They want to reduce the taxes. And that is not always in the best interest of the client with a growing business. But I want to ask you two, where did you learn all this? Because you know so much more than most small business owners. Where did you get this education?
Well, it's a good question.
It is.
Fortunately, I was able to do, I did an MBA in Spain, and that helped me a lot on understanding more the financial aspect of how a business should be run. We've been entrepreneurs since we got to the States. But before that, we come from a family that's been doing business on the shipping side of the industry, on the logistics side of the business. So our family, it's also entrepreneurs, and we know the whole process, how it's been done, and obviously following the steps of our family has also pay a fantastic teaching?
Yeah,
for-
the teaching. Basically, myself, I've been like managing my family business like for almost 25 years now, 30 years. So I've been in the working next to my father and his team. Of course, is being a lot of learning experience for myself, and
Sure.
and then once we began developing our own business and creating or being entrepreneur on new businesses, we applied everything we learned from our family business.
I met some of your family.
Yeah,
Remember, we were in the other building, we had a meeting together.
of
And
course.
that's because you're quite young to have as much experience as you
Mhm.
have.
Maybe I look younger. I look younger than I am, maybe.
Your age.
No. But you're totally right. I mean, we've been involved from the ground up, and this build up. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have to deal with everything from scratch up. And you start from cleaning your facility to overtaking all the processes and procedures within the organization and building up the team. And so it's a fantastic experience being an entrepreneur. It's really hard because obviously you're responsible and liable for whatever is happening within the organization. It's your responsibility, but at the end of the day, you are so blessed of learning the whole experience and the whole process within our.
I'm very proud of you, and this isn't even your country. I mean, you came here at what age?
I myself was 42, 40.
Oh my heavens.
Mhm.
And I was 27, if I'm not
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm gonna be 37 this year.
Mhm.
Okay. They haven't been there that long. They're both from Venezuela, Solomon.
Yes.
Yep.
Solomon, I don't know, March, if you guys can help me with a question that I have in terms of, as you know, for instance, Palatine leases the facility where we operate. If I would like to do let's say an operating, loan or the term of that loan, would it be suggested to the same term that I have on the lease of the property? I mean, how would that work?
Solomon, you answer that.
So it seems like if I'm understanding what is, I guess, the purpose of the loan, what do you need the loan for?
Let's say it's just cash flow or, business
Right.
operations or
Working
expanding
Working
working
capital.
capital. That's the
Working
word.
Right. So when you look at the word working capital, right, we call this as a short-term liability, right, or a current liability in the accounting books, right?
Yep.
Current liabilities are stuff that you would have to pay off for a short-term period, 12 months period, right?
Okay.
So most of the banks would have a product called working capital line of credit, or a line of credit, they call it business line of credit, commercial line of credit, whatever you call it, right? Typically for working capital purposes, that's a 12 months period, right? Where the whole idea of that is that you need the money now for something. Let's say I need to hire 10 people. I need to do some marketing right now so that I could get the business revenue up and running in 12 months, let's assume, right? You will use that money for that working capital purpose, take the money out. Once you start getting the revenue, you pay back the line of credit, right? And then you reuse it. That will be the ideal for a short-term working capital, right? Now, there are some banks also might do some sort of a term loan for you, right? Keep in mind the difference between a line of credit and a term loan is that line of credit, you pay interest only, right? When you use it. And then whenever the 12 months period will be paid back and then you could reuse it again. So it's kind of a revolving thing. Term loan could go from 3 years to 5 years to even 10 years. And if it's a commercial mortgage, it will even amortize up to 25 to even 30 years, right? Depending on every bank could be different. So based on your needs that you could do it, your lease agreements won't really matter if it is just a working capital, right? Okay. As a business owner, you will tend to change, right? If your business is growing, your space might be too small for you, and there's no reason for you to hold on to a lease agreement if you need to grow, right? And sometimes that's why I would say get some sort of a working capital line of credit. That will be ideal, right? And if you think now you want to renovate your leasehold that you're building because now you need to put state-of-the-art equipments to do the shipping, right? Because inventory
Right.
management is so critical, I think, in your world, right?
Yeah.
Because you guys get packages, millions of packages almost every day. You cannot be doing hand counting, right? You will be able to know. So sometimes you need to buy those equipment. You might have to redesign your lease space. And sometimes bank will be able to give you a leasehold improvement loan for that, right? And what you have to keep in mind, Max and Billy, is that don't ever use a line of credit for a long-term need,
Sure.
right?
Oh.
And you want to be very careful of that. Like what I mean by that is that you don't want to get a line of credit to put a down payment on a house or on a property. Like these are stuff that we call the covenants. And when you break the covenant, the bank, you literally pay a covenant fee or you get kicked out, right? And that's why you have to be careful, right? You need to understand the purpose of, hey, do I need a short-term need right now? Or is it a long-term need? And based on that, you will design whether it's a line of credit or whether it's a term loan or whether it's a mortgage, right? Depending on it.
Fantastic.
Well, but let me just add that when you're talking about the term of your lease, you can use the extension options as well.
Okay.
Okay.
So that if you have 5 and 5, you really have 10.
Okay.
So we didn't cover that. That was one of the questions that they
Yeah.
had. But, I feel like, Solomon, that you're saying words that are in my head. I mean, you and I agree on everything. I think the big mistake is that people use a credit card to buy a car. Is that the stupidest thing in the world?
Right, it is.
I mean, I just get very upset when people misuse. A line of credit is short term. It comes in and out, and it's something that you expect you'll be able to pay off within the year. And sometimes you'll pay it down to nothing, and then it'll come back again, and you'll need it for another, some more inventory or whatever. But if your credit is good and your financials are good, every bank wants to speak to you. Don't worry about that. You're in a good position. Is there any other question that you might have of Solomon? No? You got all the answers? Solomon, is there anything that you want to tell them about Popular Bank?
No, I mean, I would suggest is that, have that conversation with bankers or people like Margie, because it's very important that you let the plans out. Don't hold out anything. We call ourselves as the advocates, right? The way that I motivate my team is that I am not a transaction based, right? I am based on relationship, and we are the advocates between you and the underwriter who's approving the loan, right? And it's very important that you are being very clean with that, even if it is a good or a bad news, right? Let us know so that we could then design the product and the program according to you and explain the underwriters, right, what the story is, right? The first thing a lawyer says to you when you go to a lawyer is that, please be open with me. Don't hide anything, because if you hide from me, I can't win the case, right? Sure. The same situation for a banker as well. It's very critical that we do. And then the other part also, Max and Billy, and for any business owners, is have a business plan, right? And create a business plan that it could be a short-term and a long-term plan, right? You never run a business of how you're going to survive tomorrow. Because if you do that, you will never going to be coming through a storm like pandemic, right? Because these things could really impact and turn your business upside down. So having a short-term and a long-term plan is very critical. And the third part is also is that always understand that just because you make money doesn't mean that you have to spend the money right away. Yeah. Right? Most business owners make that mistake, whether it's a personal side or whether it's on the business side. Always use the money wisely, because cash is king. When you have money in your bank account, cash is always king. So always be careful of how you spend it, because that could determine a lot of other things for you in the future as well.
I have one question I want to bring up, because you said business plan. And this is a bone of contention with me, because when you look up or you go to a graduate school and you learn about a business plan, it's a 35-page document, and it's going to take the small business owner a lot of time away from his business. That's not the kind of business plan you really mean when you're talking business plan. Am I right?
No. Yes, it's basic, simple business plans that you could just create in regards to your projections and your forecasting. What your plans are, what are you selling, how we're trying to do. Again, it doesn't have to be in a document. Even if you could visualize it of what you're trying to do, right? You want to think, you want to be as a successful business person, you want to be proactive, right? You don't want to be reactive in your approach, because reactiveness can be too late, right, to adapt to it, right? Most of the business people who survived in the pandemic time are the people who thought about the future, who already had a plan, and maybe they might have to pause the plan, but they at least knew exactly where they were going, right? So always be proactive in your approach. And keep in mind also, Margie, is that there are a lot of institutions that's offered by the federal government, such as the SBDC. In New York area, we have a lot of non-for-profit organizations who create business plans as well, right? And if you think that you need to have some sort of a services, these are stuff that you could also utilize. You don't have to go and spend a lot of money on these things as well, just as a startup business, right? Once you go into that next level where you're a $20-30 million business, maybe you need to spend the money. But for a startup, there are a lot of options that a lot of people who could help you get those business plans as well. If you're looking.
And I happen to like the input from the owners. I don't want a third party preparing it, because then it's not yours. I want the facts to come from you. And most of the time, an accountant can put it onto a spreadsheet and make it look the kind of information that the bank wants to see. But it's a strategic plan, short-term and long-term, and a financial plan. And they're not that detailed, but not a 30-page business plan. I don't need them anymore. I think they're out. Nobody even wants to read them. Am I right?
Exactly. Well, definitely not us.
But I really enjoyed this. I can't tell you how well it confirms a lot of the things that I've been talking about for years. And I'd love to do it with other borrowers. I mean, you guys are on the move. I know that. And I have a feeling you won't be in lease space for long. By the way, Solomon, they sold their real estate. They had a piece of real estate that they outgrew, and they sold it last week. And that's why we had to postpone this. This meeting, because
okay. So congratulations.
Thank you.
But I know that soon enough, you'll be ready for another piece of real estate, or you want to move into a new market, because you have a nice model.
Yeah, and that's the idea.
Definitely.
Really appreciate the fact that you shared this, and thank you, Barry, for putting it together. And I hope that other people will get a glimpse of it, and we can interview some other people, Solomon, and with some other questions. They won't be as simple as these guys, because they seem to have it all together, don't they?
They are the professionals. I think they're running a very good show, and congratulations to Billy and Max. I mean, I just heard the fact that you guys came to this country literally 10 or less than 10 years ago, and you guys have done an amazing job in growing it, and you advanced in every aspect of it. And I think that's a great success, and I'm pretty sure that's why your business is being successful as well. And you know, I wish you the best. I like I told you in the beginning, small business owners are the best part of the economy growth, right? And you are part of that, right? So we are definitely great to see small business owners. At Popular Bank, we actually love the fact of helping small business owners as well. So it is a pleasure of helping them. And this is what I have done for the last 16 plus years. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I hope the conversation we had is meaningful, and you have able to take some point of ways. No matter where you go, I'm hoping that this will help you to grow and go to that next level as well with the information we provided.
Thank you. I hope you come and visit them and see it in person.
Yeah, of course. We would love to have you guys here.